For a business, so I want to go ahead and get an update on where we are with the golf course and the fiasco with the lake.
The staff is using the truck to water the greens. They watered a Monday night, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. I guess they'll decide tonight what they're gonna do.
I think I saw them
Depending on
headed over there.
the rains and everything. So, that's basically where they are right now. They've been averaging somewhere between 18 to 20 loads a night. So, and that's 1,800 gallon tankers. So they're at about, 30 some thousand gallons a night. When I talked to Brent this afternoon, he said he thought they were seeing some improvement, in the green. So, hopefully that helps.
What about on the hill? Because right now, we just got, there's 3 of them over there, Brent and Jerry and Carson.
Yeah.
Are we getting any help from the Public Works Department to help them retire?
I think first night we did, Jamie told him today, we just, let them know what he needs, we'll provide the people, so.
So you will provide some people? Yes.
If he needs us, we'll provide whatever he needs.
Okay. Because I mean, that's just something, that's an asset that we cannot afford to lose.
And we're getting a cost estimate on a, backup plan where you'd actually have a separate pump that you could pump potable water up to
that today.
Of course, and I think we were expecting that price today. I don't know if we got it. He said he was gonna try and make it, so you might get to ask him later.
Is that pump, now, is that gonna be attached into the pump inside, or is this a separate pump?
I mean, it would be a separate pump.
So we don't have to worry about intermingling lake water
Right.
with water there.
Yeah, and it would only water the greens. In the event of an emergency, you'd only water the greens in that situation, but you're probably looking at $40,000 to $50,000 probably is not gonna be a cheap option.
What is,
But you need some kind of backup plan. I mean, you gotta have,
Still have to have.
and all that.
Would have to be inspected.
so what's the time frame on this? To get it installed so that we hopefully get some relief to these guys working 18, 20 hours a day.
I'd say by the time you got all your plans and decided exactly what was needed and your parts were ordered and construction was done, I mean, you're 60 to 90 days minimum.
Oh, good.
It's not something that's gonna happen overnight.
This is an emergency, man. This is an emergency.
Having a
The only thing
backup
it's gonna
system-
save you is the rain. I mean, you gotta have rain. That's,
Yeah, having a backup system is a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have a lot of urgent needs that I know we'll be talking about.
So
Our
we're not
budget
gonna really
meetings.
worry about that if we don't get rain, then what are we gonna do if we don't get rain? 'Cause we don't have the system in the lake is not gonna be usable for.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanna know what the plan is. If this, if we could get this pipe put in and have that pipe put in, and have it in within a week, you don't have to wait. You don't have to have the engineered drawings before you start. You can always get an emergency and then bring the engineered drawings in later. But the idea
you've
is-
gotta have a pump to
Yeah.
pump the water from the fire hydrant up the hill to the greens. I mean, you can't use the existing pumps because if you're trying to force water on that side, I mean, you've only got a little well there. It's, 5 feet deep and it suck it dry and it suck it. I mean, so you gotta have it on the golf course side. You gotta install it on that side and you gotta pump from that side. So I mean, just don't buy it off the shelf. I mean, you gotta get it, it's gotta be signed.
So we're using the company out of Greenville, South Carolina that works on that pump.
I'm not sure who
Yeah, I think
Jerry is.
that's what Brent told me, I think so.
There wasn't a company in Astro when he told me that could handle that, so they got the closest one that's recommended. So.
And see, I haven't been involved in those conversations with the company, so I don't know what's their timeline is. you know, what's
Very unfortunate.
involved, so.
You weren't even aware that the dead gum lake was being dropped down. Nobody did, you know, just all of a sudden we dropped the lake down and we're in world grief here. We're putting so much pressure, put the pressure on the greens, put the pressure on the men over there working. This is a clusterfuck.
Yeah, but I would have to say, if the lake hadn't been drained and we had watered like we normally would, we'd be out of water anyway.
Yeah, but we could have planned for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. We could plan for that. I've been over there on the number six green, watering that green, trying to take it. I was hoping we could get people up on the other 9 other greens to water, but I mean, we're gonna need some hoses to do that.
And from my understanding, I'm sorry, but that wouldn't work either because there wouldn't be enough pressure to get the water up there. It'd be like just going out there and it'd do more damage than good is what I was told.
I don't think you've got the right information,
I'm
sir,
just saying what I was told.
because I have been watering that green on number 6 from the back of my sister's house and got it saturated for 2 nights. So I don't know why we couldn't go to the back, and I've already contacted the homeowners to hook hoses up to the back of their house to go ahead and water the greens, and they've agreed to that.
And that's another thing. You didn't have the authority to do that without the council.
I went and asked them, somebody had to do something.
Well, you needed to come to us to begin.
Oh, it comes to you. Yeah, well, what happened last week? Nobody even knew that the Deadgum Lake was going down. So I've got to come to ask you.
There's
No, I
no-
don't think I have to come to ask you. I can go and ask that guy, you know, I asked the different homeowners
And
and they're willing to go ahead and donate the water. So why would I have to ask you?
So,
To ask the
so we have in writing that
So
we're
we
not
have
going
in
to
writing.
ask for reimbursement?
No.
Do we have that in writing?
I think we've all spoken to Brent at this point, I believe, and his advice is to continue doing what they're doing, which is to move forward with the tankers and hope for rain over the next few days, which looks like there's significant chance of rain over the next week. That would refill the lake, that would saturate the greens, and you know, I think
Move forward.
So we just go ahead and we just hope.
No, we're gonna move forward with
Well, I think-
with a permanent plan, not just a Band-Aid.
Oh, and a permanent plan would take 60 to 90 days.
Hopefully we get rain between then. We have to have some.
So what you're saying is that we're all dependent upon rain.
I think
Instead of
we're looking at the people who are running the golf course and managing the greens. Is that's what I'm doing for the best advice. That's
Is there something wrong with trying to go ahead and try to proceed with having another plan that we could water the greens with the aid of different people that live at those greens? What's wrong with that? I don't hear anything.
True. I agree with Michael.
I agree
If
with
folks
that.
are voluntarily willing to do that,
If it's voluntary.
then I have no issue. And I agree. I agree.
In writing That
Right.
they are donating this water
Have to have
and we're not,
writing.
yes, we do.
In writing. This is an emergency situation. Have it in writing. And besides that, what would be wrong with going ahead and forgiving their May water bill then? They've done a lot for the town.
I don't believe that that's appropriate.
Oh, that's not appropriate. We're gonna, well, say, Jesus.
You cannot waive fees. You cannot waive fees for selected individuals in the community. That's North Carolina law.
Emergency. Goodness gracious.
Hey, Richard, the last time I talked to Jerry, day before yesterday, that company was supposed to come out and meet with him, either tomorrow or Friday, maybe. They was looking at their schedule, and I'm supposed to be a part of that, so hopefully by tomorrow, or Friday, maybe we'll have some more answers about what our options are and how long it takes.
Good.
I can't hear anything with you clicking that pen. Lord,
Oh, good God, sorry. I'll do that anymore.
thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I guess we'll have to proceed on since we haven't got this clusterfuck figured out.
Appreciate the cussing there.
I didn't cuss. I did not cuss. I did not. I said cluster funk,
Okay.
cluster funk. You know, when I have to get emails and when I'm on vacation because we don't have water because of mistakes that were made. And then the idea that this board here is not moving forward with trying to go ahead and let's assist these guys. They're working, say, 18 hours a day. Do you expect them to do that day after day?
absolutely not, Mayor, but I am looking to the professionals for advice, and they have advised me as recently as about an hour and a half ago
Me
that
too.
the tapping into to the homes of throughout the neighborhood is not the best path forward. They feel confident that they can continue using the tanker truck, and that is the way to proceed at the moment. You know, there are a lot of concerns around timing of watering of
What have you done in the evening? You would do it during the middle of the day.
that I'm just
Well,
following the advice of the professionals that we have hired to run the golf course and who manage those greens day in and day out. If they were advising us to do so, I'm more than happy to have that discussion.
I'm gonna get this one resolved. Please forward, please.
Sorry.
Richard.
Aren't you ready to start on the budget?
It's
All right, what you got before you is a draft budget. Normally I would give you a recommended tax rate and have it more finalized. But, we are currently facing a significant shortfall. I'm not from here. I don't know what's important to the council. I mean, I could go in and cut, I've already cut some, but I could make deeper cuts, but I don't know what your goals and ambitions are. I don't know how much pain you're willing to endure, because there is definitely gonna be some pain
There's definitely gonna have to be a lot of pain involved
adopting
with these
this
numbers.
budget. But, currently we're $1,858,260 short in the general fund. I mean, I'm on page 1 of your budget here. In the water fund, we're $918,479. So we definitely need guidance from the council as to things you're willing to cut, things you're wanting to give up, what size tax increase you're comfortable with, or if you're completely uncomfortable with a tax increase, we need to know that. The budget has been made a little more complex because this is a revaluation year. And that's what we based all of our numbers on. And since we started the budget, there has been a bill that has passed in the Senate that will delay that for a year. It is currently in the House, and it had a overwhelming majority of support in the Senate, and I expect the same thing in the House. Whether or not it gets vetoed by the governor, if it passes, that would be another question, but with such bipartisan support, I don't think they'd have much trouble getting it overturned if it was vetoed. So time we're dealing with that. If you look at the current budget time you're in right now, your property tax revenues were at $5,400,000, and your vehicle taxes were at $315,000. So both of those gave you a combined amount of funds of $5,715,000, and that was with your current tax rate of 32.1 cents. We have new values based on the that moving forward with revaluation, and the numbers we were given by the county was $2,533,992,391, and your motor vehicle values were $112,699,852. So that gives you a total taxable value of real and vehicles of $2,646,692,244. That's about it's a 47.85% increase over your values last year. Which is what everybody's hollering about when you see the news.
Right.
Richard, before you move on, do you know, is there a deadline of when the House would have to pass that?
They have to, for it to be effective before everybody adopts their budgets, they would have to do it, prior to June 30th. I mean, I
A
expect.
number, I mean, I think that we're actually a little behind, and a number of municipalities have already gone through this process. I mean, are they gonna make everyone go back and redo their budgets?
I would say probably they'll have to.
Okay.
Tom, or you may have to adopt, two separate budgets based on each variation, so. But, the statutes require, that you publish a revenue neutral rate. I mean, you can publish one with growth. You know, you got your base rate, but you've also got a rate with, growth factored in. You don't have to adopt the neutral rate, but you do, have to publish it. And based on those numbers, the projected base rate, would be 0.2202 or 22.02 cents once you factor in growth over the last 5 years since the last revaluation. Your growth revenue neutral rate, would be 22.9 cents, and that's what this budget is currently based on, is at 22.9 cents. When you take all of those revenues at the 2,533,000,000 at the 22.9, that generates $5,773,000 in tax revenues. When your vehicle values using that same rate, generates $256,791 for a total of $6,030,000. And that's compared to your, let's find that number again. That was based on your taxable amount last year of $5,715,000. So your growth and the neutral rate with growth actually results in about $200,000 of additional revenue. One thing you'll note, your vehicles last year, you budgeted $315,000 worth of tax value. When you go revenue neutral, the vehicle values don't change. So when you go from a 32-cent tax rate to a 22-cent tax rate, you actually lose money on your vehicle taxes because you drop that rate. And I think that would have cost us about $50,000 just in vehicle taxes if you do revenue neutral rate. And just for information, on that rate between your real and your motor vehicle taxes with that 2.6 billion, 1 cent on your tax rate, if you go revenue neutral or the new values, generates about $263,000 for each penny.
What was that?
$263,345 per penny. That's on page 2 of your budget here. And based on those values, and if you make no additional budget reductions for the budget to balance, it would take a 6.8 cent tax increase to balance what you've got right now. If we had to go back to the old rates, which are $1,742,000 compared to the 2.6 billion of the new values, then that only collects, and you keep the same 32-cent tax rate. That generates $5,927,892 of taxable income. You compare that, that's that is actually $102,000 less than it would be if you did the new values and your revenue neutral rate. If you go to the old values, that's where we had to go. A penny on the tax rate only generates $184,616. So there's almost $80,000 difference in what a penny generates under the new value versus what it generates under the old value. So again, in the new value, if that's the way we go, 1 penny raises $263,000. If we go back to the old values, a penny only generates $184,616. And to balance the budget, I'm using those values, it would take a 9.75 cent tax increase. Tom, as an example, if you took a $500,000 house, a 3 cent tax increase would be an additional $150 a year, or about $12.50 a month. That's 3 cents. So if you double that to 6 or 9, it seems to be a pretty substantial increase. Your second major source of funds is your state local sales tax. The state collects those funds and returns them back to the town. They generally run about 2 months behind when you get your money. So far this year, we've got 9 months of the sales tax, and in that 9 months, they have paid us $1,917,259. The same 9 months last year, we collected $1,872,189, which is about a 2.4% increase. In the prior years, we were seeing 7, 8, 9% increase in sales tax. And I think we're seeing statewide, it's just about flat. So in years past, you've had some growth there, but take 2.4% growth is not much growth. Actually, what is proposed in the budget is actually less than you budgeted last year, because you're not going to meet this year's budget numbers on your sales taxes. I think we overestimated that value. Your solid waste fee is currently $8 per household. We expect that to generate about $425,000 next year. Your sanitation budget is $1,135,404. So your sanitation fee is covering about 37% of the cost of that operation. So I think that's something, as you get into your budget discussions, I think that's something you ought to look at. Do you want to recover more of that cost? Or your golf course green fees and cart fees are based on an estimate from Brent, and starting July 1st, those numbers are based on the course operating with the full 18 holes. So we'll have to see how that goes. And that was a conservative estimate based on how many rounds they were getting before the storm. So we'll kind of see how that goes. Your stormwater fund and your water fund, when you adopted your budget last year, there was about 15 different salaries that were split between the water fund, the general fund, the stormwater fund, the fire department fund, and all that. And it got to be extremely complicated. Your department heads didn't know how it was all calculated. Nobody really knew the formulas, and you were really trying to capture, I think at that point, additional funds into the general fund to help boost the cost of the general fund. So what we've done this year, we budgeted $25,000 from the stormwater fund to go back into the general fund to help pay for these administrative costs, like, accounts payable, payroll, things of that nature. And we've allocated $75,000 from the water fund. All of the general fund employees are paid out of the general fund. All the water fund employees are paid out of the water fund. Your stormwater person is paid out of the stormwater fund. So we've eliminated that. It can the difficult way of on trying to allocate those salaries and everything. The only budgets that are split, the streets budget and the water operations budget, those salaries are split half general fund and half water fund, but those are the only split salaries in the budget. And I think it just makes it a lot easier. Your department heads understand, they know what's in their budget, they know what's being paid. One of the, I think, more significant changes in the budget is the elimination of any fund balance being put into the budget. In the general fund, I think there's a good chance by June 30th, your fund balance is going to be down to about 12%. So I don't think you have fund balance to have balance the budget. In the current budget year, you budgeted $561,000 of your fund balance, and I don't think you can do that anymore. We can't depend on that to help balance the budget. As you go forward in the following years, you need to figure out ways to build that back up. I mean, the minimum, they say is 8%, but that's 1 month's worth of operation. The LGC says you need 4 to 5 months. So you're, currently a long ways from that. And I think you need to be looking for ways to build that back up. As we get into the expenditure side of the budget, the current salaries across all funds is $7,280,827. That represents 33% of your total budget. When you add fringe benefits to that, it is an additional 18%. So salary and fringe benefits, are 51% of your budget. When you start adding utility costs and all the other fees and operations you had that you have to pay, when you get down to it, y'all really don't have a lot of control over the expenditures and budgets. You've got some, but 75% of the budget you really can't control because you have to pay those costs every year. We currently don't have any salary increases in the budget. So when I tell you you're $1.9 million short, if you want to do salary increases, you got to add it on top of that 1.9 million. In the general fund, to do a 1% salary increase and the fringe benefits that goes along with that, it's $58,081. The fire department is $23,285. Stormwater fund is $868. Planning and development is $5,447. And then water fund is $10,701. So when you look across all the fund, it's about $100,000 to do a 1% salary increase. What I can tell you, if you don't do one, your salaries will not be competitive. When I got information today, just looking at I'm at the Black Mountain Fire Department. You are currently the lowest paid department in the county. And just by every department, will be increasing their starting salaries, except Black Mountain. So you're falling further behind. Weaverville currently has 7 open positions. Their base salary is going to $60,000. So when you're sitting here paying 48, when they can go down the road, make over 60, that probably tells you what's going to happen to, some of your people. I suspect if we don't do something, we'll lose people. Health insurance is through the NC State Health Plan, and it is renewed every January 1. I have estimated a 10% increase. And since it's only a half a year, that really, is a 5% increase from January to June, but you won't know what that increase is, until you get, December timeframe. Probably, but for budget purposes, we have raised that to 5%. The dental insurance is going from $28.49 a month to $31.08 a month effective July 1st. So you start to see, just about everything you're dealing with, the costs continue to increase. I mean, you got to pay more and more. Your share for the local government retirement system, is also going up. Your local government employees is going from 21.71% to 22.46%, which is about 1%. And your law enforcement employees are going from 23.41% to 24.4%. So that's an additional $72,000 just for those costs. Of course, we got rising fuel costs. When the current year's budget was adopted, you were probably paying, $2.50 a gallon for gas. Now you're over, $4, and who knows how long that's going. Hey, we've increased the budget numbers for the fuel. We don't know how long, but these excessively high numbers will last. I'm not sure we've hit the ceiling yet. You may see even further increases. We expect Duke Energy is going to increase their rates. They have several rate requests before the that's the Utilities Commission. So we expect we'll see increase there. Our property insurance, we're expecting anywhere from a 5 to 10% increase for that. We won't know that until probably the latter part of June or July. So we have estimated about a 10% increase there. Your solid waste disposal costs, you budgeted $180,000 this year. It will be over $240,000 before June 30th. So that's another extreme cost we're having to deal with.
Those are your tipping fees, some of that.
Yeah, that's like, the landfill fees. We got several sites. We take limbs and stumps and, asphalt and concrete and stuff too, but that's your total cost for, for all of your disposal fees. The only capital outlay we've got in the general fund budget is to purchase 4 new lease cars. And what we're doing is the budget shows $260,000 worth of loan funds. You would borrow the money, buy the cars. Your first payment would be due in the 27-28 budget. So if you take out the $260,000 and you don't buy the cars, you haven't saved yourself any money, because this is only loan money in this budget year. The good news is you have a loan that will be paid off in August of 26, which is several $100,000 that you will not have to pay in the 27-28 budget year. So that would cover any additional loan costs that you take out this year. I did start out with $500,000 in the budget for streets and sidewalks. I think you need to start setting additional money back. Powell bill is not going to cover the cost. You're just falling farther and farther behind. But once I got to $1.9 million short, I took that $500,000 back out. But there's going to have to be some additional money for streets and sidewalks, because you won't get enough funds to cover those costs. Your golf course expenditures are up about $200,000, but as I said a while ago, that is based on a full year of 18 holes. So you're gonna have more cost involved when you're operating a full golf course. That, down at the golf course grill, you have some fairly significant building issues that are gonna have to be dealt with there. If that lady wants to stay in business, you're gonna have to do some flooring work in the kitchen. You got a lot of different things you gotta do if she's gonna be able to continue to pass health inspections. I mean, you walk back in that kitchen, it's pretty rough right now.
Sorry, we're concerned about that imminently closing, or I'm not sure I'm following what timeline you anticipate that needs to be
The
addressed.
floors in the kitchen are rotting. That time you got several places with different pieces of tile and different, styles of tile, and they're separating, so you can't really keep your floors clean when it's, when the floor's falling apart. So when the health inspector comes, if that gets noted, I mean, that's gonna, cause issues for her in the future if you don't fix things like that. I mean, it's just basic maintenance issues, but you let it go so long now, it's, it's more of a significant problem. On top of all of that, the state just took bids on a replacement for the 9th Street Bridge. And based on if the town can find any additional federal funds, and we should know that after June 11th. But your match for that project is could possibly be as low as $391,000, but it could be as high as $842,000. You don't have that money in your budget right now. I don't know where you're gonna find $300,000 to $800,000. If you back off and say, well, let's just close it and we'll make it, where you can't go across the bridge, there's a good possibility that the town had to repay what's already been paid for the engineering fees and everything else been paid, and that's $500,000 or $600,000. So you kind of in a no-win situation there. If you got to do something with your public service building, whether it's build a new one or fix the existing one, you don't have money for that either. So you got your normal budget concerns, but that's just an example of, two capital projects that you're gonna have to be spending money on very soon that you don't have. Now, my concern with your current financial situation is I'm not sure the LGC is gonna let you borrow money, which is a huge concern.
On that bridge, the 9th Street Bridge, can we get a breakdown on how much, because we paid money in already, right?
The town paid all of the, that's the right of way purchase, which was about $90-some thousand, I think. The state has paid over $400-some thousand for engineering fees. So about $500,000 has already been spent.
Well, I think it warranted, it warrants the call and look at it, see, because you could close that bridge down and none of the homes would be in any adverse situation from safety standpoint, whether it's fire, or it's police.
But you could be in a situation where your cost to back away from the project is going to be about the same as it is for your match.
I understand. I'm just simply saying we need to look into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want us to make the assumption that we got to pay that, because they very well may, because of our financial situation. Give us a year, give us maybe 2 years to go ahead and get things ready so that then we could come back and finish the project.
I think also you're seeing, construction costs aren't gonna get any cheaper. So if you wait a year, it's just gonna cost you more money, but I mean, I think you ought to explore all options right now, because you don't have the money to do what
That's
needs
the
to be
purpose of me asking.
done. That's moving on to the water fund. The city of Asheville is probably will increase your rates by 33%. That is about an additional $308,000. Now, when you budgeted your water revenues in this current budget year, you budgeted $2,475,000. You're gonna fall about $375,000 short of that projection. You also, in the current budget, you use $265,527 out of your fund balance, which you don't have anymore. The expenditures in the water fund by June 30th would probably exceed your income by about $500,000. You lost about $400,000 the prior year. And if you lose $500,000 this year, that's a pretty big hit in 2 years. As I mentioned, based on the budget you have before you now, we're $918,000 short from that budget balancing. Your current rates, your base rate is $6.14. We bill per 100 gallons. So for the first 0 to $5,000, every 100 gallons costs you about $1.09. When you go over 5,000 gallons, every 100 gallons costs you about $1.14. With 4,244 water customers, if you put it all on the base rate, $1 raises about $50,000 and you're $900,000 short. So that's about an $18 increase per month per customer. If you put it on your rates at the time, or your per gallon cost, at the time you'd have to raise your rates about 50 cents per 100 gallons, or $5 increase for every 1,000 gallons. So if a customer uses 5,000 gallons, just doing it on the rates, that would be an additional $25 per month per customer. So that's a huge increase that your customers would have to face. We had a 500.
Let me interrupt you there just to try to get this. You say overall, we've got $918,000 that we're going to be short in the water fund.
Yep.
And of that 918, are you including in that 918 the shortfall from the water fund, and then also the 375,000 from the sales?
No, those are related to the current fiscal year you're in. That $375,000 that you're not going to make in sales ends June 30th.
Sure.
So this is what you're $900,000 short for next year's budget. So you got to make that up either through your base rate or your per gallon rate.
So we're 375 plus 918.
No, you're just 918 short right now.
You showed that we got
$375,000 is short, is in the budget that ends June 30th.
Yeah, but
Not next year's budget.
but do we have that covered?
Yes, we have that covered in that $918,000. When you're short, that's all it is, $918,000. There are no other shortfalls in there to consider. You did receive a $500,000 loan from DEQ for your next phase of your lead and copper line inventory. You basically have to go to every water customer in town and determine if their line is copper or lead or PVC or plastic or whatever. The $500,000 loan will maybe do a third of your customers. So at some point in time, they'll have to be a phase 2, phase 3 of that inventory. It is a 5-year loan, 0% interest, but you have to start making your payments. So the first payment with that down would be $100,000 next year. You didn't have that payment this year, so that's an additional $100,000 that you gotta pay. We're facing some of the same things as we are in the general fund. Increased utility costs, increased chemical costs, fuel costs, everything. And I mean, everything you buy to maintain a water system has gone up significantly over the last 2 or 3 years. You just finished a 5-year update of the town's system development fees. You have an opportunity where you could increase that if you chose to do so. We'll bring those numbers to you later. But you're restricted as to what you can spend those funds on, so it can't be for your day-to-day operations. It has to be for certain projects with certain restrictions. So that's sort of your picture in the water fund. I move to the fire department fund. Basically, the town pays 59% of the budget. The county pays 41% of the budget. Based on the proposed budget, which is balanced, your share would be $2,008,000 compared to $1,438,650. And the biggest difference in your contribution, last year you budgeted $361,400 fund balance. You only had 128 in your fund balance. So there's a possibility that the expenditures before June 30th might have to be supplemented with some additional money from the general fund because you budgeted more than you had.
Why are we looking at such a increase?
But you got $100,000. I'll get to that in a minute. You had the $361,000 of your fund balance that you don't have this year. If you kept your budget the same, you would already be $361,000 in the hole. You ordered a pumper, I think 2 years ago, and it is supposed to be delivered in August or September. You're gonna have to borrow the money to finance that truck, which is gonna be about $475,000. So your debt service is gonna be just over $100,000 a year for that, that new truck. So you take that $361,000 and you add another $100,000 on top of it. That's why you $500,000 more this year.
Okay.
That the town has to pay. The county has, additional funds, that the town could capture, but to get 41 cents, you got to spend 69. You don't have 69 cents right now to match any additional funds. And again, if you want to do salary increases to try and save your firemen, or you want to bump up their salary, that money's got to come from somewhere. But the biggest benefit, if you do something with salaries or salary increases in the fire department, Buncombe County will pay, 41 cents of every dollar on that. So, see, there was a request for a aerial truck, which is estimated cost of about $2 million. I think y'all seen that every year for the past few years. I've already cut that out of the budget. You don't have the funds to buy that right now. And that's sort of where you are in the fire department budget. Moving on to the planning and development fund, the town's contribution this year is $241,961 compared to $355,000 last year. But in your planning and development fund, again, you were paying just about everybody, the portion of everybody's salary, in the general fund. So once we took that out, the actual contribution you got to make this year will be significantly less. And then the stormwater fund, that's basically, funded by your fee of $6 per month per household. And you got, commercial and institutional at $20 a month. And you got the industrial sites pay $100 a month, and that generates about $372,000 in money. But you had so many salaries last year that you were paying out of the stormwater fund. You really didn't have any money to do stormwater work. Once you paid all the salaries and the fringe benefits, you didn't have any money left over. So again, we took all those salaries out and they're back in the funds that they should be in. And that actually leaves you with $185,000 next year that you can spend on stormwater project, which I think is a good number. At least it gives you some things you can do and you're not spending it on salaries and fringe benefits. You can actually do stormwater work. And again, we're taking $25,000 out of the stormwater fund to contribute to the general fund to cover the administrative costs, and that still leaves you that $185,000 for stormwater work. You got a $400,000 grant for a stormwater master plan, I think, which the town is, the council has seen as a part of that master plan. They hired a firm to do a rate analysis on your stormwater fees. They have sent us a draft proposal of that rate plan, which setting up a meeting between them and staff, and then we'll hopefully we'll have it to council before the end of June, because I think you need to look at your stormwater fees. But based on their initial report, if you want to do what needs to be done in the next 10 years, the $6 a month won't cover it. You can imagine how far $185,000 a year ago when you're doing stormwater projects. So that's sort of in a nutshell where you are.
Mm.
You don't have very much positive news.
Is there any?
Well, I guess some of the positive news is we are starting to get money back from FEMA. I know y'all advanced like $1.5 million or more out of the general fund balance. So as FEMA money comes in, you can put that money back into the fund balance, or you could use that money as your match for the bridge replacement, or you could use it towards, some other projects.
Hard copy on that. So they can see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you've looked at it and stuff, but there again, all this stuff is just floating around.
Yeah.
And, we need to be able to see exactly where we are.
Well, if you move just say if you move $1.7 million and you spend $800,000 with IEM, that's gone until FEMA gives you your 5%, which could be a year from now, 2 years, or 4 years from now. But you won't get all of that, the $800,000 back. I think you'll be lucky if you get half of it back. So, we still got a lot of moving pieces to figure out all these. I got all these numbers. But I think in the next few weeks we'll have some better numbers for you. I'll say before you adopt the budget in June, we should know what you can pull back into the general fund. But my recommendation is that you use those for one-time expenditures, like if you want to match this bridge project. That's don't use it to balance your operating budget, because that's just going to cause you more problems down the road.
That's what's got us in trouble here.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly what's got us in trouble. It's going to the well too much.
Yeah. My thought was this evening just to give you the broad, picture of where we are, and you know, what issues you face. I'll try and answer any questions, and if you're ready, we can start looking at the individual budgets.
So just for clarity, you're not, this budget does not include any tax increases, does not include any additional water fee increases, nothing like that.
We got to figure that out. So,
Right.
I mean, I need your help. Like I said, I'm not from here. I don't know what's important to y'all. I mean, I could cut stuff out. Y'all say, we don't cutting that out. I mean, we love that. We're not going to not fund that. So I think I need your help in this area. If I'd have been here longer, I mean, I bounced it for you, but
You don't have any recommendations at this point on cutting staff?
with staff being 51% of your budget, if you're gonna make significant cuts, that's where your money is. I mean, you're not gonna, $500 yourself cuts out of this whole. And if you're moving forward for the future, don't cut yourself short either, because I think when you set this tax rate, it needs to be with a vision that this rate is gonna get us through the next 2, 3, or
Right.
4 years. Yeah. Don't cut it so much that you have to come back and raise it next year and the following.
Right.
Because you were short-sighted in the first year.
Yeah.
I mean, every budget we've given you, there's a front page with the totals, and then the following pages give you a lot more detail on what is actually paid for out of that budget. And if you want to turn to the council budget, which is on page 14. If you like my fancy numbers at
Hey, I'm
the bottom.
Add your numbers.
I had to learn the budget system before I could even get started. So it's been a challenge, and there's still a few things that I'd like for it to look a little better. I don't have any fancy graphs or anything yet, but
I think
we'll
we
get
have
there.
some idea of what a graph might look like.
Yeah. It'd be a whole lot of red. If you turn to page 15, as I mentioned, that sort of breaks it down. I don't give you a lot of detail. I mean, you know what, Social Security costs are, you know what the board salaries and all that are. But when you start looking at, like professional and technical services, you got a recommended budget of $13,000, and that basically covers the video services for the council meetings. That cost you about $1,050 a month. Office supplies, things like that, it's $1,000. If you cut it to 800, or you cut it to 500, I mean, that's $500. I mean, but it's gonna take a whole lot of $500 to make up $1.9 million.
Yeah.
Tom, I think one thing that you should focus on is if you turn over to page 16. What you funded in the past, the Friends of the Fonta Flora Trail, you gave them $5,000 this year. Let's see, Black Mountain Library, you gave them $12,000. The Black Mountain Swananoa Chamber, you gave them $12,000. The Swananoa Valley Museum is $5,000, and the Swananoa Valley Christian was $10,000, and your tree committee has asked for $4,000 this year to complete some of their projects. The beautification committee basically said they could go another year without any additional funds, but your tree committee has asked for the $4,000 because they've got several projects they want to work on. So when you start making cuts, I think these are some of the first things you look at. Do we continue to support these organizations in the amount of money? It's not a huge number is $48,000. But those are your biggest expenditures in the governing body page. Unless anybody's got any questions, we'll move on to the next one. We had planned about an hour and a half, so. If it's all right with that.
Richard, a more general question. Do you happen to know how many vacancies we have on staff right now? Outside of leadership and,
You got PIO, assistant manager, the,
Finance.
yeah, the finance
yeah,
officer.
I guess I mean, like,
I guess,
within departments.
PD.
I think we hired 2 this week and we put 2 on conditional, but I think we're 4 or 5 down with those, with all our retirements.
and fire, I think we're full right now, won't we, Chief?
Fortunate right
I mean, I think Jamie's almost full with the two,
now.
maybe one person, so.
What was fire? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Zero.
Good.
And
If you don't bump up salaries there, you're gonna be.
but the Parks and Rec, water
I think
department,
they're full, everybody
Everybody's
else is full.
so pretty much everybody's full.
Yeah.
Outside of department heads and,
Yeah.
okay.
When you take your, PIO, I know y'all want that position, but I think being $1.9 million short, that's probably one of the first ones I've looked at.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
That, assistant manager,
Yep.
another.
Project manager.
PIO, I think we are greatly, underutilizing Greta Gibson. And I think you could take her and Wesley, and I think they could do most of that work. Working as a team.
Yes. Now that you're not headed in here, but if we're really looking to really inform the public, let them know what's happening. I think that probably can't put it in there right now, but it'd be good to have an electronic sign down there across from Black Mountain Chamber of Commerce in our parking lot
Yeah.
there to let people know what's going on.
A lot of people use ARPA funds to buy those, but you've already spent all your ARPA money, so. All right, if you turn over to page 19, that sort of begins the administration budget. If you look at the top of the page, I've got the manager's salary at 175. I guess, hopefully you'll find out, next Wednesday, maybe if that's enough. Or if you have somebody interested, I got the assistant manager at 125. Your clerk is already here. Your public information officer was budgeted at 75, and your project manager was at 82,683. Well, I think is actually over budgeted for that position. I think that's more. I'm in the $50,000 to $60,000 range myself. I mean, it's just my personal opinion. As I mentioned, local government retirement, that's going up, additional 1%. You contribute an additional 5% 401k contribution for all employees. You are mandated by state law to do it for the officers, but it's the council's choice if you do it for the other employees, but you've done that for several years now. I would not suggest taking that away. If you move to page 20, the professional dues, we got, the clerk's dues and the schools and training that your clerk goes to. You've got the, city manager's dues and your assistant manager's dues. These are all listed here. You got the ICMA membership, which is a International City Managers Association, which just about anybody you hire is gonna want to continue to be a member of that organization and everything. And moving down to the next one, employee continuing education is basically off the schools and the expenses you go to keep your certifications and your training and your annual conferences for whatever, organization you're in. And moving down to contracted services, that's basically what it takes to keep town hall clean. You got your mats that you rent, you got your pest control. We have somebody come in here and mop and wax the floors every quarter, I believe. You got a fire alarm system that you have to pay for. You got somebody that comes in and cleans town hall, which runs you about $5,400. So when you look at all that, it's about $13,000 to maintain this building every year. I'm just gonna point out your big ones. If you look under electric vehicle charging there, which is about the middle of the page, you've got a EV charging station at PD. You got one at the Black Mountain Library, and you got one out near the pool. Those are currently costing you $12,000 a year for the electric bills. The
Except for all three
PD
churches.
charger is on a separate meter, so between those three locations, you're paying over $15,000 a year.
Where is,
I mean, you're seeing the same cars over and over and over again. They're getting free gas.
where is the PD one represented in the budget? Is it in the PD budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're electric bills. So if you're paying $12,000 for those two locations, you could be paying $18,000 for all three locations and everything. But you got those sites were paid for by grant.
Yeah.
And I think that runs out sometime next year. And
that we have to have it.
yeah, and as soon as that runs out, I'd put a meter on.
Yeah.
Because that's $18,000 you don't need to spend. And
Right.
like I
we're
said,
still
I
under
think
that.
you're serving the same people.
We're still under
over
We're
and
still
over.
under that.
Yes.
Year. Okay, I
Yeah.
thought it was up this year.
I think it is sometime in like the fall or December.
Fall of 2026
something,
or,
You gotta,
okay. Can we find that out?
we'll find out. Sure. I think it's, coming actually in sometime either late 26 or early 27, I think.
So
So,
in this budget, we'll be looking at that.
yeah. Now, if you move down to the lease, the rental and building and land, you say $12,000. That's your lease for the parking down by the tracks. That you just signed that lease when we went from 2 to 12. So you got that annual cost. Looking at the bottom of the page, contingency, we've got $25,000 in there just in case something comes up during the year that we weren't anticipating that you need a source of funds for, because we don't want you using any fund balance moving forward if at all possible.
Good.
Debt principal, the general fund, I think, pays half of the public works building. So that's your, I think, it was in originally 1.5 million. It was reduced or revised at $700,000, and that loan's paid off in 2030. So you still got a few more years on that. And that's about $32,000 and another $3,800 for the interest. The second loan, you borrowed $2.1 million to buy the town square back. That loan pays off next year, or the upcoming budget year, October of 2026. That's $126,000 payment. And when you get through the upcoming budget year, Tom, you won't have that interest, I mean, that loan payment anymore.
And just to add to that loan was not just for Town Square. That town was for Town Square and for this building.
Okay,
Both of those properties were included in that.
okay. You got any questions on the administrative budget? Next was human resources. And if you turn over to page 25, I think that's where we start breaking it down for you. You currently have 2 staff members. Now, when I got here, they were both reporting to the town manager on top of all the other people reporting to the town manager. But so we have since, I can't think of the title, but we got one person now supervising the other person. So, what we had proposed here was to actually name that person as the HR director. But, as you know, that person is leaving in July. And I think we need to take a real good look at this department, as to how it's staffed and the funding for it. I think you may have some opportunities there to do something different. So, that's a discussion we can get into a little later. But your health insurance runs you about just over $10,000 per employee, so it's a huge cost to your budget.
What-
Workers' comp's paid out of this.
On average, do you know, so on top, like benefits, including health, everything else we cover, on average, if we were to, cut a $50,000 salary, how much that would save us?
I expect fringe benefits are running you 30 to 35%.
Of the salary, base
cost.
salary. Okay.
So if you cut a $60,000 salary, you're getting close to $100,000 of savings.
So we don't have assistant and town manager, and then we go ahead and do the fee. I know that was 200, so therefore using that math, we're over 260,000.
Yeah, that's like 282, 683.
Workers' comp's paid out of this budget, which is $115,000. We haven't done bad with workers' comp. We got a pretty good rate. I actually think we'll have an actual decrease this year, but the time you still have, costs you had to pay for claims and different things. So we kept it at $115,000. You got your, drug testing and background checks we have to do every time we hire somebody. There's funds for that. There are funds in there for employee appreciation costs, which is at $12,000, and that's for like lunch and learns and things to, boost morale and training employees and things of that nature. So, and at the bottom, liability and property insurance, we budgeted $198,000 this year. You spent $197. We think it's going to cost you about $212,000 next year. So that's about a 10% increase on your property liability. That sort of covers everything in the HR.
Is that for the property and casualty, that's what we'll need also?
Yeah. I think both on workers' comp and property and general liability. If they
Unless, if I recall, we made the switch. Gap between rates at the league were markedly better than they were paying.
I think you get better rates and you get better service. So
The rates were.
they really look after you, and they, they're constantly looking at things that you should be doing to avoid litigation costs and things of that nature. So if you turn over to page 28 is the finance office. I've got that budgeted at $135,000 for your finance officer. I think it's gonna take that to get one. If you can get one. The budget
That's
analyst,
just salary, that's not benefit.
no, it's not benefits, that's just base salary. Is at 135. I mean, we can lower it or I mean, that's really up to the council, but I think that's where your market is right now.
You probably wouldn't find anybody.
I was saying that we'll be in the same issue where we can't find it.
What is it listed at right now?
Sure.
Is it listed at a certain?
I think they're waiting until you hire,
Oh, the town manager,
at
yeah.
least get further along with the manager. We do have the lady from the league who just started last week. She'll be here at least a couple of days a week, and I think she's good through July or August. And when that runs out, we can always ask for more help if we don't have somebody by then. I
So,
mean, you got Bronwyn also, that can help us put together the final documents for the audit stuff, which is what she did this year for us, but that cost you about $30,000 for that work.
are we up to date with just the basic accounting? Reconciling bank statements? Cause that,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
prior years, you look at the up, with that things weren't getting done.
Right.
Everything's good except our biggest challenge right now are the capital projects, getting those into a form so that we know what we owe, we know what we're
Right.
spending, we know we got coming in, we know what's going out. So,
Right.
you know, that's our main focus right now. But they're also helping us with other things when she's here.
I think it'd be beneficial, especially to the new town manager coming in, beneficial to whoever will be the finance director, for us to go ahead and get a forensic audit done. We've had a lot of things in our finance department over the past 2 to 3 years that have not been up to stuff. I think it'd be a wise investment and also show the new town manager, show a finance director that, you got good, clean books in there. What would that run? 5 to 8?
I'd say probably 10 to 15, I would imagine.
They're pretty pricey, and you're not gonna get any professional accounting work done. The numbers have just gotten
Yeah.
pretty crazy, so it would be very expensive. The other thing, and I don't think that's a bad thought, but is, like to get the input from our auditors on that.
Yeah.
I was curious.
You had a clean audit.
Yeah,
every
my opinion on it.
year,
That-
but you
that's
can
all.
still hide stuff and can still make
There's
things.
still a lot of if you look at the comments on, the comments they make on controls and issues that they
Yeah.
found, it's gotten better.
But here again,
Couple of
they're
years.
pretty much dependent upon our figures that we.
Yeah.
do. So.
Yeah, well, they're auditing your
We
numbers,
go
but they're
with
not
that.
auditing their numbers, they're auditing your numbers.
That's right.
Forensic audit, we get somebody that can look under the hood.
Yeah, that's really
I think that would be beneficial to the town.
that'd be y'all's choice, I think, so,
It would be interesting to see what the cost might be.
yeah,
My guess is pretty steep.
yeah. If you look at the bottom of the page, your audit next year is gonna be $85,000. You budgeted $77,000 this year, you spent 82. It's gonna be 85 next year, and that's basically because of the single audit requirements for all of the state and federal dollars you got coming in. You gotta do single audits on all those projects. So that just increases your price.
Is that over 100 or 250?
I think it's $500,000 now. Now, if you turn over the page to page 29, the biggest cost there, your bank service charges and fees. We budgeted $18,000 this year. We already spent 14, so we budgeted 15,000. I think one of the first things your new finance officer should do would be to take quotes on banking services. You're probably paying more than you should have. Should be paying that, right? That's a time consuming process, putting all that together and getting the the bank proposals and reviewing them and deciding what's good and what's not. I mean, it's a huge task, and I think that's one of the first things that your finance officer ought to be
Will
doing.
this get better because of the last board meeting to, to come, to pick up some, to pick up some of those fees from,
I think these are actually separate. This is what you pay the bank for your monthly checking account and savings account and your bank statements and all that.
cards and so forth.
It's not card fees. I don't know if we skipped what that, what that cost was, but we're gonna have you something back at the June meeting, for consideration on the
Right.
bank card fees and everything, 'cause I think that's $50.
You could also,
Yes.
just so the council can talk about it, the difference between trying to get someone local, a local bank here.
Yeah.
They have to drive it all the way, because we're spending, one person spending an hour a day having to drive over
Yeah.
to, OT.
It's right, good little drive, so. But like I said, that's a huge task to get those things. I mean, you really need somebody that's done it before knows what they're doing to move that forward. Buncombe County charges you 2% for your, tax collection fees. We budgeted $120,000 for that 2%, but that's based on the new tax values. So if we go back to the old tax values, that would probably go back to about $114,000. So there might be some change there. And that's pretty much it for the finance office. Got about 9 more minutes, Mary. You want to do one more?
Yeah.
All right, if you go over to the page 31, it is your technology cost. You see that total budget is $286,000 for your basic IT services. That's contracted out. That runs you about $7,500 a month. And again, that's another one I think you ought to put back out on the street to see if there's any potential cost savings there. I think that's high.
Some of those license fees can be pretty high. I don't know what you can do about that. Because it's all combined here, isn't it?
Yeah, the software, I mean, you gotta have to operate and, their costs keep going up. I mean, you do have a lot of software packages, but I guess people have gotten accustomed to them over the time. It makes the job easier. It makes information, readily
Well, you
available.
never get accustomed to it.
No.
That's the truth.
But you got a lot of Civic Plus, and we got a software package to do your agendas and your minutes. You got a public records request software that goes through and finds everything everybody's asking for. You got a social media software program. Your code of ordinances is through a software program now.
And I'm sort of, this would include anything we're paying for cybersecurity and the testing and the sort of stuff that the employees.
I think all that's covered in that $7,500 a month with it.
Right.
Advanced data and network services. That's your, your firewalls and your
All that kind of
computer and everything. They cover all that for you.
Right, right. But that's
It's still pretty expensive, $90,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, you look, your software is $136,000 a year. But again, you gotta have it. Your phone system, the voice over IP phone system, that runs you about $26,000 a year. Your actual internet service for this building runs you about $5,000 a year. So. And
That's for this building.
yeah,
Who's that through?
it says Eric Broadband. I don't know.
ERC,
Yeah,
ERC. That's who I thought it probably was. and
Yeah, it
that's
probably
probably
is.
I guess that's probably as good as you can get. It would be a bad idea if somebody could check into it, but.
Yeah.
ERC's, They've got the big line, that big broadband line that goes down the valley up your way, up the mountain, up toward there. A lot of, and I think it probably is the most affordable, I suspect.
Yeah. For the speed we need and the size of the bandwidth and everything. I think it's gonna be more than your household, which is $100 a month, so. I mean, in technology supplies, we have a maintenance agreement on the copier. There's a limit. This is on page 32. There's a limit on the number of copies. We normally go over that every year. So there's I think, additional $2,500 there. And then we just got some additional funds in there, like if a screen goes out or computer, a laptop goes out, we had to replace it. We got $3,000 in there for that. And then at the bottom, we actually lease the copier. That costs you $12,500 a month, and the maintenance agreement costs you another $9,500. That so to have that copier at about $20,000 a year. So I mean, nothing's cheap. It's just
Numbers are crazy.
Mayor, that gets you through
Okay.
625.
Water, 30.
If there's anything else you think you need, or, if you want any additional information, we'll be more than happy to gather that. For you, but I hope this helps you. I know y'all said y'all wanted paper
Yes.
copies. It's kind of hard to look at all this and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, but you can take this home and look at it and read it and weep and.
That's what got us in trouble in the past, not being able to see all this stuff. Yeah. All right,
Thank you.
anybody else got anything?
I apologize for raising my voice earlier. If that was inappropriate. It's hard to focus when tensions are high. Yeah.
So we'll stay in the morning at 8:30.
Absolutely.
Meeting adjourned.
14-hour recess.
Yeah, I mean, that way it's not a big deal.